In our first session, uh, studied that there were four process of acquiring knowledges. Primarily, they were categorized into two divisions. One was ascending knowledge, the other one was the descending knowledge, right? So, in this session, we're going to talk about some of the ascending knowledge. That we have acquired as products of modern science, and we are also going to look at some of the alternate solutions or some of the descending knowledges that are actually giving us some better things or better knowledge in life. So let's get started. So first thing is about Ayurveda and allopathy, the modern medical science. So as I had previously explained, Ayurveda is a science coming from Vedas or scriptures, and it is categorized as Shabda Praman or descending process of acquiring knowledge. Whereas allopathy is a medical science which is actually based on sense perception, and people have developed this medical science based on experiments and observations, and so they basically cut the body and then they see how different parts work, and then they produce some chemicals and then they see how these different how the body reacts to these chemicals. So that's the process of allopathy or modern medical science. So we'll compare the two. So, the modern science or medical science actually focuses on symptoms only. It doesn't focus on the root cause. So, in many of these diseases like diabetes or cholesterol or heart problem or thyroid, you basically do a test, and then you see the symptoms, and basically you focus on giving medications that actually help reduce the symptoms, but it does not, people don't understand what is the root cause of the problem, and it does not focus on the root cause. Whereas Ayurveda is actually focuses on the root cause of all elements. And basically, root cause of all elements is linked to three types of modes, which are actually Kapha, Pitta, Vayu. These are the three different elements present in the body, and these actually correspond to three modes of material nature. So Kapha actually corresponds to mode of goodness, and Pitta corresponds to mode of passion, and Vayu or Vata corresponds to mode of ignorance. And Bhagavad Gita gives this information again in 14th chapter, fifth verse. Sattvam rajastvam iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. It says material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So these are the three modes which acts like acts like strings attached to our body. So these strings, they actually pull us, and we behave based on which string is pulling stronger. So every person is actually different, and the variegatedness in this entire material world is due to different proportion of mixture of these three modes of material nature. It is almost like similar to there are three principal colors, and when we mix these colors in different proportion, we get all the different colors in this world. That's how similarly we have three modes of material nature: modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So in Sanskrit it is called Sattvam, Sattva gun, Rajo gun, and Tamo gun. Tamo is ignorance, and Sattva means goodness, and passion is Rajogun. So Ayurveda actually measures the balance of these three guna, Kapha Pitta, by way of Kapha Pitta Vayu, and you can actually read nadi, you can read your nerve, And to some extent, even I do that. I read my own nerve and see what's wrong with my body, whether which is imbalanced, and then accordingly I take medicines in Ayurveda, right? So that is the root cause of all elements, so and the other good thing about this Ayurveda is you can do some search, and there are some Ayurveda specialists who can, by reading your nadi, they can even tell you what are your if you have any malfunction in any of the organs, like if somebody has prostate cancer, or somebody's kidney is not working, one kidney, left kidney, right kidney, so they can read your nadi nerve, and then they can tell you that your left kidney is not working, is working on 20% capacity only. So they can actually do that, and they can actually also give readings of your complete blood count and various other test results just by touching at your nerve, and they can tell all these different elements in your body, CBC. So that is the advancement. That is the level of advancement of Ayurveda. But in allopathy, you have to do some complicated tests which are expensive, and sometimes it does not give you any conclusive results. Okay, the second point is in allopathy, you depend entirely on medicine for the rest of your life. So if you have diagnosed with some problem, let's say diabetes, you have to take these medicines every day throughout your life. There is no other alternative. But in Ayurveda, we actually work on curing the root cause. And once the root cause is cured, you can stop the medicine. And basically, Ayurveda gives you some lifestyle. It's a holistic science. It focuses on lifestyle, medicine, what time you sleep, what time you should get up, what kind of exercises you should do, what kind of lifestyle you should live, what you should eat, and what kind of yoga pranayam you should do, what kind of meditation you should do, what kind of spiritual practices you should do. So these are the basic holistic science. Now, when I say this, you remember, I think in one of the sessions I mentioned that this body is compared to as a chariot, where the horses are the senses, and your reins of the horses is mind, and the driver of the horse or sarthi is your intelligence, and self or the soul is the driver. I'm sorry, is the passenger. So it is from this analogy, it is very easy to understand that the passenger, who is the owner of the chariot, can influence your body, right? If he gives direction to the chariot driver that you turn left, so that chariot driver will pull the reins of the horses in a specific direction so that the horses turn left. So what I'm trying to say here is that the spirit soul, there is a hierarchy of control here. So lowest level is the body, then above that is the mind, then above that is the intelligence, and then above all is the spirit soul. So any level which is higher than higher can control the lower levels, right? So mind can control the senses, intelligence can control the mind and the senses, and the spirit soul or self can control intelligence, mind, and the senses and the body. So anything wrong with the body can be cured if you cure the intelligence, if you cure the mind, or if you do some activities at the spirit soul level. So that's the holistic science that Ayurveda believes in. It actually, and you can also, it is evident that sometimes what happens is people are actually not suffering from any disease, but mentally they feel that somebody told them that you're suffering from cancer or something, and then mentally they are thinking, yes, I am suffering from cancer, and even though he is healthy, even though he is not suffering from any cancer, but eventually, because of his mind, conditioned mind, he will develop that disease. So that is proven in medical science. So in Ayurveda we actually work in holistically to the entire body, mind, intelligence, and spirit soul level. Okay, so in allopathy there is no preventive measures, whereas Ayurveda we focused mainly on the preventive measure, which includes lifestyle, exercises, food habits, pranayam, yoga, and all that. The only preventive thing that's present in allopathy is vaccine, but just wanted to briefly talk about vaccines here. Vaccines may work sometimes, but many of the times it causes severe neuro psychiatric disorders like obsessive compulsive disorder and anorexia. So these are some of the there are many more disorders being observed in children, and these vaccines, they are, I'm not saying they are useless, but sometimes definitely are helpful, but there are side effects. There are side effects. If you try to do some search, you will know that there are several cases where children are paralyzed, mentally disabled. There are many diseases caused by vaccines. Okay, so these medicines are made from artificial chemicals which are harmful for the body, and prolonged use of these medicines results into organ failure. So it is known fact that if you take people, specifically in foreign countries, they take a lot of painkillers and antidepressants. These medicines actually causes slowly it causes failure of kidney and even liver. And some of the medicines, like the medicines we take for diabetes and cholesterol, uh, even for heart problems, these medicines have a lot of ill effects. And basically it works in a way that it suppresses your symptoms in one place, and then it gives some other symptoms in some other organs. But Ayurveda actually deals with natural processes, and there are no side effects. Now, the concept of surgery, which is there in allopathy, we may say, surgery is very advanced and it saves a lot of people. So this concept of surgery was actually stolen by Britishers from Ayurveda texts. There are Ayurveda. There are detailed description of in Sushrut Samhita has described plastic surgery like Nasa Sandan, which is also known as rhinoplasty. Karna Sandan is like when you have your ears are cut, you have an artificial way of attaching your ears. Osteosandhan, lipoplasty, replacement of limbs with artificial limbs. So in Ayurveda, there is detailed description of all these surgeries where a person has lost his leg. Then this is how you make attach a leg made of iron. So these details are there, and Britishers, when they came to India, they stole this knowledge and then they incorporated these in their MBBS or in their medical study. So why this knowledge was there in Ayurveda? Because in wartime, युद्ध करते हैं तो many times people lose their limbs, or sometimes people get punished by cutting their ears or nose, or they get damaged. So Ayurveda has these different processes described in detail on how to attach these limbs and how to do operation. So that's there in Ayurveda as well. Now, complex and expensive testing procedures, we already covered that. We already covered Nadi Parikshan, which is very simple, and it gives immense details about the condition of body. Allopathy actually believes in uncontrolled sense enjoyment. They say, it doesn't matter, you keep eating whatever you want to eat, you keep doing whatever you want to do. It has no ill effect on your body. But Ayurveda and actually Vedic science believes on controlling your senses. It's basically focused on focused on understanding the purpose of human form of life. And this one verse in Bhagavad Gita is specifically relevant here. Vishendriya samyogat yad sorry, Vishendriya samyogat yad tad यत्तद् ग्रे यत्तद् अग्रे अमृतोपमम् परिणामे विषमिव तत्सुखं राजसं स्मृतम्. So this actually tells that Vishendriya, Visha Indriya, Sam Yoga. So when you that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with material objects, with their objects, and which appear like nectar at the first, but poison at the end, is to be understood as I'm sorry, it's hard to read here, as happiness in mode of passion. So the happiness in mode of passion is will be in the beginning, it will sound, or it will feel like nectar in the beginning but poison in the end. That's the so you may find it very good in the beginning, but then it results into miseries. So Ayurveda, or specifically Vedic science, they do not recommend uncontrolled sense enjoyment. Whereas allopathy or medical science, they say you can eat whatever you want to do. You can have you can have sex as many times as you want during a day, and it will not affect your organs, right? So, but Ayurveda has, or Bhagavad Gita or Vedic literatures has a very detailed explanation of what happens and how this happens. I'll not go in details, but these are the some comparisons here. Okay, now we're going to talk about the age of plastics. So we in the beginning there we had golden age, silver age, bronze age, iron age, and now this is the age of plastic. So we find plastic everywhere, everywhere in our homes, in our body. We wear plastic. We sleep in our beds are made of plastic. Our uh, our utensils or cooking pots are made of plastic. Teflon. We eat in plastic plates. We eat in styrofoams, which are polystyrene. So we cannot avoid plastic. And as you can see in this photograph, we have actually polluted this entire earth everywhere, including land and water, and even ocean. We have polluted. We have we have disposed plastics everywhere. And the problem is this is non-biodegradable. It pollutes groundwater, it pollutes soil, and it also pollutes crops. So what's wrong with plastic? So plastic is polyethylene terephthalate, which is termed as PET, which is the toxic chemicals. Basically, toxic chemicals leach out of plastic and are found in the blood and tissue of nearly all of us who use plastic. We cannot avoid, obviously, but we can minimize. So, exposure to these chemicals actually are linked to cancers, birth defect, impaired immunity, endocrine disruption, and other elements. I think there is another BPA, which is another element which is also discussed sometimes. And there are food grade plastics which have low or no BPA. So we'll not talk about that. But it is proven that these plastics actually they emit toxic chemicals. Polyestyrene is a material which is common everywhere. You cannot avoid it. Um, and styrofoam plates, glasses, and boxes, they are actually made of polystyrene. And polystyrene is a generic term. It's also hard plastics are made of polystyrene as well. Even the soft plastics are made of polystyrene. So what's wrong with this? Um, so polystyrene contains a toxic substance, styrene and benzene, which are suspected carcinogens. Carcinogen means it's cause of cancer. And neurotoxins. Neurotoxins is actually a toxin which actually disrupts your neurological system, nervous system. It causes a lot of harm to human beings, human brain, human body. And specifically, if you put or keep hot food or liquid in a polystyrene or plastic container, then specifically the styrofoam, the white styrofoam, I think it's abundantly shown in this picture here. Everywhere you have this styrofoam. So it releases when you put hot liquid or hot food in this styrofoam cups and boxes and plates. It emits some toxins which are absorbed by our bloodstream through food, which is very extremely harmful. So my point here is, I'm just trying to give an outlook here that our science, we have developed this science, we have developed this plastic, and as I said, the in the process of acquiring knowledge, there were ascending process where we said it was subjected to four defects. The defect number one was we tend to make mistakes, right? And the defect number two was our senses are limited or our senses are defective. Then third was we tend to cheat others, and the fourth one was what was the fourth one? We are illusioned. Yeah, that's correct. So due to these defects, we are actually trying to do good. Maybe we are trying to do good, but the result is a disaster. So we invented plastics to help solve some of the problems in this world, but it's actually a disaster because of these four defects, and because we have blind faith, we have strong faith in science, so we tend to accept things as they are, right? Many of us, not many of us, almost all of us are using these things nowadays. This is unavoidable. In When we were young, with small children, we used to see these paper bags. When you buy something from grocery store, they used to give it in paper bags. And my parents and even we used to carry a bag when we go out for shopping. But these days, uh, they give it in plastic bags, and people don't carry basket or something. So you have to use this polyethylene bags. So these plastics are unavoidable, but at least to some extent we can avoid wherever we can. So that's my point here. Okay, now going over metals. So we use many metals in our. Specifically, I want to focus on our kitchen, on because food is something which, when contaminated, it directly gets absorbed. The contaminations gets absorbed in our body, and it has ill effects. So one of the harmful metals, there are many harmful metals which are used, cadmium, lead, all these heavy metals, arsenic. These are very, very toxic, very poisonous. And we may not know, but some of these factory processes, where, for example, steel, it uses chromium and nickel. Now we'll go over steel a little later, but let's talk about aluminum. So, studies have actually linked that frequent exposure to high levels of aluminum, which leads to neurotoxicity, or it emits some neurotoxins, and it has severe ill effects on health, specifically on nervous system. It causes Alzheimer's disease, breast cancer, and so forth. So how was this aluminum introduced? Basically, in India, if you take the history, we never used aluminum in our kitchen. But it was when Britishers they came, they were putting all these revolts or revolutionaries in prison, and India had abundance of bauxite, which is actually source of aluminum. So they said, fine, we have cheap aluminum, so make aluminum plates and vessels and feed them to the prisoners. And we don't care. I mean, if they die, we don't care. If they develop some Alzheimer's disease, we don't care. They are prisoners. So it was introduced by Britishers and in the prisons, and till date, even today, in prison house, you can see that people are fed in aluminum plates and vessels. So that's how in India we started using aluminum plates, but it has a harmful effect, lot of harmful effects, and we should not use them. Now, steel is a manufactured metal, and stainless steel specifically. In ancient Indian Vedic science, we never used steel. Although we had this knowledge of steel, but we never used it in food or in kitchen. So there are two specific ingredients in steel, nickel and chromium. So it has been observed in several decades that prevalence of allergic contact dermatitis, ACD, dermatitis is skin. So it's been observed that nickel to large extent nickel is responsible for allergies, skin allergies, and skin problems. And chromium also to some extent it causes this ACD. But steel actually is a lot better than any of these, better than plastic, better than aluminum, better than Teflon coating, better than anything else. Because in one sense, it is kind of, it does not react with many food items, so it is better. But small amount of nickel it gets released. Nickel gets released into food, and that also causes harm. So it is not perfect, but it is the best. It is the best in all the modern cookware. So if you can avoid aluminum, that's the best, and replace them with steel, you will still be healthy and no issues. But for some non-stick ware like Teflon, it's really very dangerous. Teflon is something artificially created material. I don't know what the constituency, but at high temperatures, these Teflon coatings actually break down and they release some toxic fumes into air, and they also release these toxins into the food, and it's known to cause flu-like symptoms, which is known as polymer fume fever. It causes fever. It's that dangerous. So you should never use Teflon coating in any of your cooking vessels. Now, there are many other examples. I'm not going to go in detail about all of these, but then one may ask, then what should I use? If you can't use aluminum, you can't use Teflon, you can't use steel, you can't use plastic, you can't use styrofoam, what should we use? So now comes the Shabda Praman, where in India we have been using for ages, we have been using what? Earthen pots. So these earthen pots are very clean, are are very because you actually make the pots, use it and throw it, use and throw, right? And it's available in abundance everywhere. You have earth, so and it's very easy to make. So and the basic benefit out of it is it provides you with micronutrients, because when you cook lentil or dal or anything in an earthen pot, there are a lot of micronutrients like iron, cobalt, chromium, copper, iodine, manganese, zinc. I don't know, so many things that get released from these the soil, the mud, the earth, and these are actually micronutrients. They're released in a very small amount, and it's a mixture. It's we're not saying. Now some may ask, okay, what if these materials are also causing problems? It's basically when we make these earth pots, we actually, the kumbhars or the earthen pot makers, they select some specific soil or specific earth or mud to make pots out of. It's not like you can take any mud and then make pots out of it. So they are specifically chosen and they are safe, and it actually adds to your health. It actually adds these. So for example, a lot of we these days we eat a lot of medicines, right? We eat medicines to cover our iodine or manganese imbalance or vitamin, whatever minerals, so many minerals. So we take these medicines, but if you eat food in cooked in earthen pot, you don't need to take these medicines because it provides you these micronutrients. Okay, so other materials are obviously some people who could afford, specifically kings and other rich people used to eat in golden plates, silver plates. There was a Bronze Age where people used to eat in bronze plate and bowls. You can see here this picture. It looks so elegant. It looks so nice. And bronze is actually safe metal, and there are no harmful chemicals. Largely, it is made of copper, and I think um, some amount of tin is added, and there is a third ingredient I forgot, and it's very safe. Um, and then copper copper is also good, but not for cooking. You can store water in copper pots, because copper reacts with acidic items very fast, and it produces green colored rust. And actually, copper is known to be very good for hair. So people who have hair fall, if they drink every morning, if they drink water from a copper pot which is kept overnight, and you drink it in the morning, it actually is beneficial for your hair and loss. It will actually stop hair loss. Even iron pots or iron kadai and all, these are also pure iron is very good. It's very good. It's no harm in it. Even if you consume some iron, you basically need iron in your body. It's good. If you look at disposable items, then plantain leaves like banana leaves, and even cups and plates are made of bhojpatra or leaves like dona, जिसको बोलते हैं dona. So that is also very safe, natural. You can throw it, and you don't need to worry about pollution or degradable, because plastics are not degradable, right? Okay, so these are the ancient knowledge given by our scriptures, and we have been using these elements or these items in our culture, but we are probably not aware of the benefits of these materials. So this is actually coming down from Shastras or Vedic literatures. That's why it is proven. It is infallible, it is harmless, and it is beneficial. It is all proven because it is coming from right source. It is coming as a Shabda Praman. You cannot you cannot be cheated. This is not subject to mistakes. Okay, now let's talk about GMO food. So scientists have been actually trying to exploit the material nature, and they have gone to the extent that they have been trying to genetically modify or alter the genetic structure of some of the food items. And so naturally, we have been given some natural food items, and we, with our own brain, we are trying to alter the structure, genetic structure of these items. Whether it is helpful, whether it is good for us or not good for us, we don't know. So one example is what happens is brinjal is a very common vegetable, um, which is called in some other countries called as eggplant, and so many other names are there. So the problem with the brinjal is it is subject to some insects, and there are specifically borers, the worms which actually bore a hole in the fruit and even in the shoot or the plant. They bore and they hide inside. So even if you spray a lot of pesticides, these borers or these worms or insects, they don't die. They live inside, and they happily keep eating these, and they're destroying the crop. So people were faced with this problem. So they said, because it's amounted to lots of losses in agriculture. So they said we will genetically engineer the eggplant or the brinjal. So BT is an insecticide actually. I forgot the uh, full name of this one. So it's actually an insecticide, BT. It's being used for several years, for several decades. So they genetically have injected this Bt protein into the genetic structure of the brinjal or the seed of brinjal, and then they are basically selling these seeds. And these days in India, it's very common, these Bt brinjal, and you can't even find the natural brinjal anymore. So there was some research done, and they said, oh no, this is harmless, it doesn't cause any harm. But then in 2010, Dr. Lou M. Gallagher, PhD, he did some research with Bt brinjal. He fed this Bt brinjal to rats, and he studied the behavior or effects of this Bt brinjal on the rats for few, I don't know how long. So in that review, he concluded that actually this is what his uh, exactly the line copied from the research. Current results from these rat feeding studies indicate that rats eating Bt brinjal experienced organ and system damage. Ovaries at half their normal weight. They lost their ovaries. Enlarged spleens with white blood cell counts at 35 to 40% higher than normal. Why do you have large blood cells count high? Because whenever you have an infection in body, your body produces this WBC. So these Bt brinjals are actually, when they eat these brinjals, their body is actually trying to fight against this Bt protein. That's why they are producing this 35 to 40% higher white blood cells. Then elevated eosinophils. Eosinophil is responsible for cold and cough, indicating immune function changes possibly due to allergen response and toxic effects to the liver. Even the liver got toxic effects um, because they had elevated bilirubin count along with plasma acetyl I don't know how do you pronounce this. Further studies are required to assess the potential outcomes of these indicators of tox. So, the problem with this genetically modified brinjal is that it may not be safe because these experiments were done with rats and they had several toxic effects. Now, the other problem is economic problem. So, these natural brinjals, if they are costing 35 to 40 rupees a packet, seeds of this packet, or seeds of this brinjal are costing 35 to 40 rupees a packet. The Bt brinjals are costing somewhere around 1400, 1500 rupees a packet, and which is a huge price difference. And then the problem is you cannot actually earlier what farmers used to do is when they grow a crop, they used to keep the seeds themselves for next cycle. But problem with this genetically modified food is that you cannot keep the seeds. You have to depend on the GMO. Monsanto is the company which holds 98% of, I think, more than 90% of these seeds. So you have to depend on this company to buy seeds, and you have to pay heavy price to buy these seeds. And these so it has economic implications. It also has over dependence on technology. We don't know whether it is safe for our consumption. So there are several. So similarly, there are several other GMO foods, genetically modified foods. The some of the milk that we get, I think most of them, cows are given injections of hormones uh, to produce higher quantity of milk, but those artificially injected um, uh, cows, they produce milk which we don't know whether it is safe for our consumption, because body has a natural process of manufacturing or producing milk, and if you play around with the natural way, I think definitely it's going to fire back. That's the law of karma, or that's how the nature works. So similarly, now other example is this Jersey cows. Okay, so these Jersey cows, we in India currently Whenever you see a cow milk packet, they will not write, but generally speaking, it is obtained from Jersey cow. What is a Jersey cow? So the normal cow, which was prevalent in India, um, they are called desi guy, or scientifically we term it as A2 milk. But A1 milk is the Jersey milk, right? So in order to, because that desi guy, desi cow, is actually produces less amount of milk, but the quality of milk that the desi cow produces is it's very good, and it's good for brain tissues for children. It's good for, it produces lot of vitamins and minerals. It's really very good. But in order to give higher yields, what these Western companies, what they did was, Jersey cow is nothing but a hybrid of a cow with a pig. Okay, you can imagine. So they have played around with the genetic structure, and if they have created an animal which is half pig and half cow. So we are actually drinking milk from 50% which is coming from pig and 50% coming from cow. So you can imagine what kind of intelligence are we going to gain out of drinking this A1 or Jersey cow milk. We're going to become like pigs. So, and we don't know about the harmful effects. We don't know. At least we know that it's not going to give any benefit. Another point to be noted is these Western countries, they have introduced this Jersey cow and they have infiltrated. They have infiltrated in India because of economy, because of control over economy. Indian government in several years ago, they defined this policy that we are going to spread the use of Jersey cow, and this has led to a result where almost 90% of the cows in India are Jersey. It's very difficult to get desi milk, A2 milk, and they are very expensive these days. And they do a lot of adulteration. They add a lot of water. Anyways, so the other interesting fact is, India specifically exports lot of beef. You can do the research on Google. India does a huge amount of beef export to Western countries, specifically America. And the primary reason being the Americans, they don't want to eat flesh of Jersey cow. They pay higher price to eat flesh of desi cow. So you can imagine why they're trying to import Indian desi cow meat. Although we don't recommend eating meat, and obviously in Shastras cow is treated as mother, and one should not kill mother or cow. But that's a separate topic. So if this Jersey cow was so very good, why are they not eating their own cow that they have created? They want cows from India slaughtered. They want us to slaughter our cows and feed to them, and they are going to give us Jersey cow, and we want they want us to drink milk from Jersey cow. That's ridiculous. So there are several other examples of genetically modified food, and we should avoid. This is a disaster. This is a disaster, and problem is we don't have any control. So even if I'm a farmer and I'm planting natural brinjal in my field, but somewhere close to my farm there is a BT brinjal farm, so the seeds or the pollen grains from the BT brinjal farm will be automatically carried by these honeybees, and they will automatically produce BT brinjal in my farm, even though I have planted natural brinjals. So that's the disaster, the extent of disaster. Even if I want to produce normal brinjal, natural brinjal, I cannot do that. So this is a disaster. This is the level of control, level of exploitation of Mother Nature. Okay, now let's come to some of the other products. Now, we use this toothpaste right from our childhood every day, every morning, evening, and we in fact pay these toothpaste. If you price calculate the price of toothpaste, it's more than 600, 700 rupees a kilo, a kg, which is expensive than pure ghee, which is expensive than even pure ghee. And what we do, we apply it on our teeth and we spit it out. If it is so good, if it is so expensive, if it is so good, why don't we eat it? Why don't we consume it? Why do we spit it? So the problem is it has some harmful chemicals in it, which are proven to be very harmful for our health. And if you can see, if you minutely read the warning sign, it says keep out of the reach of children under age 6 years of age. In case of, I'm sorry, my picture is coming. In case of accidental ingestion, seek professional assistance or contact a poison control center immediately. So this is the warning already printed. Why are they printing this warning? If it was safe, why are they printing this warning? I don't know whether we print this warning in India, but at least America and Europe, these countries, they are bound to print these warning if it is proven to cause harm. So there are, on a high level, there are two chemicals that I want to talk about. Sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS, which is actually a foaming agent, and it is found in a detergent. And this because with the help of this we actually produce this foam. And it's also found in shaving cream, soaps, detergent. It produces foam. So whether it is safe? No, it is not safe. SLS is actually causes skin irritation, damaged hair, and severe eye damage. You remember, right? When you take bath with soap or detergent, it accidentally goes in your eyes. It's very irritating. Your eyes become red. It's very irritating, and prolonged exposure to this SLS is actually leads to blindness. So that's the toxicity of SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate. Now, other very important ingredient is fluoride, and actually there is governing body which actually governs the amount of fluoride you put in toothpaste, because it's very harmful. It causes osteosarcoma, which is a rare bone cancer in children. It causes bone cancer in children specifically. It irritates stomach and which leads to ulcer, brain damage in children, reduce IQ, uh, interfere in bone formation, and it possibly causes arthritis. It affects our thyroid functions and even linked to infertility, loss of enamel. The reason we are adding this fluoride is basically it 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 helps in making our teeth shine, but we don't know. I think it's working the other way. If you look at teeth of old people from our village, they'll have white teeth. But people nowadays, specifically if you go and see Americans and Europeans, they have yellow teeth because of this fluoride. So it causes loss of enamel, and so then one would say, you know what, I've been using these toothpaste throughout my life. Even the kids are using, nothing is happening. It may not. But if you look at the overall in 1960s, 40s, 50s, these 70s, even 80s, we didn't have that many occurrences of cancer and all of these diseases. Why are these diseases increasing day by day? Because we are using these products every day, and not one product, everything: plastic, styrofoam, aluminum, toothpaste, soap, detergents, all these we are using, which eventually piles up toxins in our body and causes cancer and several other diseases. So whether what should we do then? We don't have any alternative. Well, you can say, yeah, let's use natural Ayurvedic toothpaste, Dantkanti, or I don't know how what all. But even those toothpaste have fluoride. You read Dantkanti at fluoride, and SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate. Vico Vajratanti. All these are another form of cheating. They say Ayurvedic, but it's not Ayurvedic. So the best way is to there are several other alternatives. Okay, neem twigs, datun is the best. It's the best. It has natural. The sap of these neem twigs are naturally disinfectant and naturally cleans your teeth, and you have natural bristles. And the other problem is when you use a brush, you use a brush, same brush for maybe a year or 2 years. And in the base of the brush, there will be some deposits which actually attracts bacteria and viruses to live in those bristles. And it causes another, actually putting yourself into risk of getting bacterial and viral infection. Whereas twigs are something you use and just throw it. You don't keep it. Even if you want to keep it, you can cut the top portion and then keep the bottom portion. It's safe. So now it's cheap. It's free of cost. You don't have to pay anything for it. Whereas if you calculate the amount of toothpaste we use, one person on an average uses, it goes to lakhs of rupees throughout his lifetime. So because it's expensive, 700, 800 rupees per kg, and you use at least 7, 8 grams per day, morning and evening. So you can do the calculation. It goes to lakhs of rupees. Now, India has 130 crore people. Everybody is spending lakhs of rupees on this toothpaste. Amounts to millions and millions of dollars or rupees. I don't know how much. So it's a big loss. And specifically, this money is going to other countries. This money, Colgate and all these Close Up, Pepsodent, these companies are owned by Americans and Europeans. So we are paying for money. We are paying for them. We're paying for them. It's not going. It's not going to our own economy in India. So that's another aspect. Now, well, there are some other alternatives. We can use some manjan like lal dant manjan. So they don't have this fluoride and SLS, these foaming agents. They might be a better opportunity, better alternative. At home, you should try this. At night, usually what I do is I take sarson tel, mustard oil, and some salt, and that's it. You can add some turmeric as well, but that's it. You basically rub it with as a manjan with your teeth on your teeth. It's very helpful. Mango leaves actually are has the property of whitening your teeth. So if you can crush the mango leaves and use it um, as a paste or as a manjan, so it will actually whiten your teeth. But the best is datun. I use neem twigs. I don't use toothpaste anymore. Okay, microwave. It's a very good invention. The way it was invented was, I think, during World War One or World War Two. I don't remember. But during the World War, microwave was actually used for communication. Microwave, as the name suggests, is actually a wave which has, I think, shorter wavelength, if I'm not wrong, and high frequency. So these waves were used for communication, and during cold winter time when World War was being fought, some of the soldiers, most of the soldiers were feeling cold, so they actually huddled around the communication tower or from where they were emitting this microwave, and they felt the heat within the microwave. So that's how they invented, I think it was during World War One. So that's how they invented that microwave produces heat. So can we use this for cooking our food? So this microwave oven were invented, and the way microwave works is actually termed as dielectric heating. What happens is you put anything in microwave oven, it actually oscillates. The waves oscillate, goes back and forth, and the water molecules or the food particles is basically also oscillated left, north south, something like it's such a high frequency of oscillation of the molecules that it produces heat. That's how it actually works. And you can imagine when you put some food particle, food item, and at the molecular level, it is causing oscillation of molecules. Then it's actually breaking down the structure of your food particle, and it results into no nutrition. So if you eat food that is cooked in microwave, you're not getting any nutrition because what you're eating is not what it was originally supposed to. So that's how this microwave works. And microwave oven is very harmful. People are advised, specifically pregnant women, children, they are advised not to go in front of microwave, and you're not supposed to go and see the microwave inside the microwave oven when it is working. Now, there are several effects that were studied. It was studied that it creates carcinogens, which is causes cancer, and then it um, causes loss of vitamin B12. Any food item that you keep in it, and let's say milk, you heat it up in microwave, whatever vitamin B12 you may have in the milk will get destroyed. Okay, in Swiss clinical study, researchers found that blood changes in individuals who consume microwaved milk and vegetables. The study showed red blood cells decreased while okay, so a lot of changes in the blood. They had decreased red blood cells, which is not good, and increased white blood cells. Increased cholesterol. These were observed. Microwave can change your heart rate as well. And if you don't know, there are some countries which have banned microwave oven. And my father, he's currently in Japan. Um, he's actually nuclear scientist, and after retiring, he's actually working in Japan at an international organization he's consulting there. So he had microwave in his home, and then government of Japan, it actually they sent out a notice. Anyone from now such and such date, if anyone is keeping microwave oven at home, then they will be fined. And people they come, knock at your door, and they inspect your home. And if you have microwave oven, you will be heavily fined. So you're supposed to throw them. Okay, refined oil. So this is oil in the natural form is very good, healthy. And many years ago, when we were kids, we used to use natural cold pressed oil, which is also called lakad ghani in Marathi in Maharashtra, right? So they have a wooden wheel which actually crushes the seeds, specifically mustard seeds, and you produce natural oil. But then what is refined oil? Refining of oil is done to actually remove the thickness of the oil, and we actually make it thin. We make it odorless, and it's just almost like water. It flows like water. It's not even oil. And they claim that we are actually reducing fats. But actually, it was observed that the trans fats are increased in the refining process. There are several chemicals and bleaches which are used during the refining process, which are actually harmful. So nickel is one of them. Uh, Nickel produces many carcinogenic and negative effects on the respiratory system, liver, skin of human body. Um, Studies has also shown that if you cook food in refined oil, causes increase of cholesterol and other cardiological problems. It also results in ulcers, gastroenteritis, cysts, or even tumors. Sodium hydroxide is um, used in the refining process. Now there are several bleaching, dewaxing, deodorizing, degumming, and deacidification chemicals used. These are very harmful chemicals. You should probably watch some video on how the refining is done, what are the chemicals used. You can do your self study, but this is study that I have done. And personally speaking, I don't use any refined oil anymore. We used to use it for a few years, but I use cold pressed mustard oil, the best. So there are some effects on respiratory system, the heart health, and many other issues. You can do your research, independent research on it. Pesticides. Okay, so these days people are moving towards organic food where people don't use pesticides. Now, pesticides are extremely harmful chemicals, and some of the fields are sprayed at least almost alternate days or every day. They are sprayed with pesticides. Now, how are these pesticides coming to us? Because when you spray these pesticides, so much of pesticides, they get penetrated into the fruits or vegetables inside the fruits. And when we buy them, they already have all these pesticides in it. And sometime when people are living close to farm, they can get these pesticides in air, in water, groundwater pollution. So many ways you can get it. And there are some acute symptoms of using pesticides, causes headaches, nausea, skin irritation, rashes, etc. There are some chronic problems which causes cancer, reproductive and nervous system problems, organ damage. So there was several studies conducted. One such study was conducted in Iowa, is a state in America, United States of America, and it was observed that people who are actually pesticide applicators, people who apply pesticides or spray pesticides in the fields, they have higher chances of prostate cancer, 41% more than others. Then other problems are retinal degeneration, means which leads to problems with your eye or blindness. It causes Parkinson's disease, thyroid disease. Um, then it causes. Then this was observed that in California, some people were living close to farms and they were regularly applying pesticides in those farms. And then it was observed that that locality people were 75% more susceptible to um, Parkinson's disease, specifically children. Now, thyroid diseases were more common in women who were married to people who are working on farms or pesticide applicators. So these pesticides actually go into air, water, soil, groundwater, river water, everywhere. You cannot avoid them. These days, the even the soft drinks are have pesticides, right? I don't know why you need to put pesticides in soft drinks. First of all, I don't know whether I put a slide on soft drinks, but soft drinks are not very safe. They're not even food. Let's continue. Okay, here you go. Soft drinks. Sorry, I really forgot what I put. So soft drinks are supposed to cause a lot of defects in human body. First of all, they are very rich in, I think, some unsaturated um, sugar and it causes the main problems that it causes is low bone density. One of my friend's father is in Bombay. He used to drink a lot of soft drinks every day and almost every day, and he had a lot of problems with his bone cracking, fracturing. So he consulted doctors, and they actually found out that because he was drinking a lot of soft drinks, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, I don't know all these. So doctors they told him not to drink these soft drinks. It causes low bone density. Your bone becomes weak. Specifically, it eats away your bone marrow. Now, porosis is another problem which actually causes lack of calcium. When you have lack of calcium, then your joints of bone actually causes bone spurs, or which is create some calcium deposits on it because of lack of calcium. Um, okay, there is another instance which was actually I heard it from Rajiv Dikshit. So I think one of you had mentioned about him. So what he did was he found out that Amitabh Bachchan was actually some time back he was operated for a problem in his large intestine, and his large intestine was heavily affected or spoiled. So doctors actually advised him because he was this kind of disease was seen in people who either eat a lot of beef or a lot of red meat, and people who drink a lot of alcohol. But during so doctors found that he was not actually doing any of these stuff, but they also found that he was drinking these soft drinks on a regular basis. So they advised him not to consume these soft drinks, and thereafter he stopped consuming them. And Rajiv Dixit, he actually sent a email to him asking to confirm whether this is what has really happened. So Amitabh Bachchan, he did confirm, yes, I was drinking a lot of soft drinks, and because of which my large intestine was totally damaged. So then he went on and asked him, why do you then promote these soft drinks, Coca-Cola and all in your advertisements? Why can't you just say against it? But he was not ready to say against it, because obviously he's earning money from all these advertisements. So there are a lot of problems with these soft drinks, and these are not even food, not even categorized as food. It's something chemicals. And by the way, you know how these people they make this is another form of earning money. So what they do is they will put a lot of caffeine into these soft drinks. I don't know whether you can find those in India, but in America, I've seen that when you buy a soft drink, you will have two types. One is caffeine with caffeine, and one is without caffeine. Originally, when these were introduced, they had caffeine in it, because caffeine causes addiction. And once you start drinking these soft drinks, you get addicted to it, and you cannot leave it. So some people I've seen in my in when I was working in Goldman Sachs, there was one person who used to keep different flavors, at least 10 flavors of soft drinks in his office. And he never used to drink water. Whenever he used to feel thirsty, he used to drink soft drinks. So he was so much addicted to it. Red color, yellow color, orange color, black color, white color, colorless, everything, every color. So this is a this is a trap. This is a trap. People let them drink these soft drinks, and we'll put addictive substances like caffeine into it, so that they come back. They come back. They want to drink more, because there is no nutritional value, anyways. So this is a money-making business, cheating business. Okay, I think this was the last slide, but I just want to add some more details here. One of the other item that I want to talk about is tea and coffee. These are also these days in India is specifically widespread, and if you don't drink tea, then people look at it as an insult. If you go somebody's house and say, I don't drink tea or coffee," then they'll say, "Oh, you've insulted me. You've come to my house and then you're not drinking tea." You know, personally speaking, I have never, from my childhood, we have never ever drunk tea or coffee. Sometimes maybe handful of times, maybe 10 times in my whole life, I would have drank coffee or tea, not more than that. So from my childhood, I've never drunk these things. So what's wrong with tea and coffee? The problem is tea and coffee, they are very addictive. They're drugs. They're a form of a drug. And once you start getting addicted to it, and if you don't get this tea or coffee, then your brain will stop working. It's an addiction. Some people can't get up in the morning without tea or coffee. Some people can't go to toilet without tea or coffee. Some people can't work, specifically in IT industry. You need tea or coffee in order for your brain to work. So it's very addictive, and what it does is actually neurologically it slows down your nervous system slowly. It's another form of intoxication. Like alcohol is an intoxicant. Similarly, caffeine and these tea and coffee, they are actually intoxicants. It slows down your thinking power. It slows down your brain. Eventually, not if you drink it once, it won't happen, but if you've been drinking it for throughout your life, eventually your brain will slow down. That's one problem. The other problem is obviously whenever you drink tea or coffee, you consume sugar. So it causes other problems. Then so the other problem is the tea and coffee are very acidic by nature, and you can do a research. Any food that you consume which is acidic of nature, it causes a lot of diseases in your body. So our intention, doctors they advise to eat alkaline foods like natural vegetables like cucumber. The some of the other green leafy vegetables are alkaline in nature. Salads. So these are very healthy. But anything which is acidic in nature is very toxic, very harmful to your body. So in India, we didn't have this custom of drinking tea or coffee. It was actually introduced by Britishers, and it was introduced as an economy, as a way of earning money. Because most of these, not most, I would say 99.99% of these coffee or tea factories or owners are actually from Europe. There's Lepton, I don't know how these names, or Brook, and I don't know what are these names. But these names, if you do and research, you'll Nescafe, right? So you'll know that these companies are owned by Britishers or Europeans or Americans. So the money is actually going to them. So, and although they buy these tea leaves and coffee beans from India and Sri Lanka and other Southeast Asian countries. So they actually when they came to India, they discovered these tea leaves and they said we can make a good business out of it. So the Indians they were drinking milk and lassi and they were healthy. So the Britishers they said, oh, you know what? This tea has milk in it. It is very strong. It is healthy. You drink it. So they used to give them for free. And then slowly people started consuming them and they got addicted to it. Then they started charging money. And that's how they started earning money. And they started sending this money to their home country. So this is the business, and this is the problem and we should actually be wise enough to understand where is this cheating going on and what is good for our health, what is not good for our health. So you have to believe the Shabda Praman, which is coming down from Vedic literatures, which is coming down from Shastra, which is coming down as a parampara in your own home. If you see, go to Punjab, you'll see these big lassi glasses. They're made of bronze glasses. They're not made of plastic or aluminum or anything uh, Teflon, styrofoam. So these our culture is very vast and very strong and has a very deep root in science. So you can know the benefits of, for example, gomutra, urine of cow. We'll say, oh wow, you know what? Why would somebody use urine of cow? And these days, people are drinking cow urine. In olden ages also, people used to drink cow urine because it's very good for health. Now, my father used to tell me whenever in villages they used to get these skin problems, specifically measles or chicken pox. Any amount of medicine you apply doesn't cure that measles, but if you bathe yourself with cow urine, it gets cured, and also gobar, cow dung, it cures in a day or two. So it has antiseptic property. People actually they paint their houses with cow dung. interior and exterior walls, because insects they don't come, snakes they don't come whenever you paint your houses with cow dung. Insects don't come. It's an anti insect or insect repellent. Even these mosquito repellents coil that were initially made, I don't know, these days they are made of chemicals, but initially these kachua chap and all these, they actually were burning cow dung. And if you burn dry cow dung in home, mosquitoes won't come. So these are all proven facts which are actually coming from Vedic literatures, which is coming down in our disciplic succession, which is passed down from our ancestors. And these are all perfect knowledge, Shabda Praman. Whereas the no, new things that we are creating by research and all, it's bound to fail, bound to fail. So what do we do? As long as possible, we should stick to natural things and which are proven, because we don't know. Somebody will say, "Oh, this is good for you. This is good for us," but you never know. We can't blindly believe. Another thing is white sugar is actually it's called refined sugar. People say when you go to doctor, they'll say, "Oh, you have diabetes. Don't eat any sugar, any sweet things." But actually, sugar does not cause us diabetes. But it's the refined sugar that is causing problem, because all the chemicals they use for refining, for bleaching sugar, the sugar which is in pure form, which is in form of mishri or good, is very helpful, very helpful. If you take in a controlled quantity, it's actually good for our health. But it is because of this modern refining process that we have introduced diabetes in 1960s, 70s, or early 20th century, and even mid and late 20th century. We didn't have enough lot of diabetes problem in India. It all started by towards the end of 20th century, and in this beginning of 21st century, we are have this diabetes problem. So, and people are these days creating artificial sweeteners, artificial sugars out of chemicals. I don't know what all they put into it. It's useless. So we need to believe in the Shabda Praman, in the things which are proven.